Let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's reminisce about peak middle school literature. Also, this recap, it's going to be unhinged just because I'm going to be focusing on the parts of the book that I enjoy the most and, you know, neglecting a lot of other stuff, so just beware. So in middle school, I was obsessed with this book, The Selection. It's a series, a trilogy of 3 books. There are additional books, but like mainly the core of it is a trilogy. And so here's the premise. So the story takes place in the future. The United States and countries as we know it have broken apart, reassembled. They're all called new things. There's this caste system. You've got 1s at the top, which are like the royal family, and you've got 8s at the bottom, which are like peasants, homeless people. And the main event of this book is called The Selection. It's pretty much like The Bachelor for the prince of this book, where several girls vie for the attention of a pretty average white male. Let me introduce you to our main character. Her name is America Singer. Her family is a 5 on the caste scale, and to give you an idea of where that is, it's pretty much the top of the lower class. The caste system is pretty weird. Whatever caste you get is contingent upon whatever social economic status your relative had when they created the system. So for example, if your relative, your great-grandfather, let's say, was a musician, then your family from then on will be musicians and stuck in that caste system for the rest of time. There are ways to move in between the castes, and that is through marriage. If you're the woman in the relationship, you take on the caste of your husband. So it is very normal for women to try and move up the ranks through marriage, and if you move downwards in the ranks for love, that is very frowned upon. If business is also booming for you, you can also move castes that way, but I think that scenario is a little bit more rare just because there are designated jobs for the members of the cast. Like for example, if you're a 5, like America's family is, then you have to be some sort of artist. There might be other jobs within the cast number 5, but she mainly talks about how 5s are like the artists, 2s are like the celebrities, the models, the actors probably, 6s are the servants, so they do a lot of housework, manual labor type jobs. So anyway, this is the world in which America is living, and in the selection, 1 girl from each of the 35 provinces will be picked at random to be a member of the selection and vie for the hand of Prince Maxon. So anyway, with this in mind, let's get into the story. America, the main character, is eligible to partake in the selection. However, she doesn't want to. She happens to be hopelessly in love with this boy named Aspen. Aspen is a 6. America is a 5. Like I said before, love between castes where the woman is a higher status than the man is very frowned upon. So America and Aspen have been meeting in secret in this little treehouse. They're neighbors, they're family friends, they grew up together. And so with that in mind, when the letter came to America's house saying like, hey, you're eligible to be in the selection, America was like, hell no, I've already got a man. But she couldn't directly say that outright because it was a secret from her family, and her family, particularly her mom, really wanted her to enter because their family is really struggling financially and winter is coming up. That's always like a rocky time for their family. So America's mom is like, girl, you need to enter the selection. Who knows, you might even get picked. Like if you don't enter, you're being selfish. And America's like, yeah, and what about it? But then later, Aspen convinces America to enter the selection because he feels guilty holding her back. The odds of her getting picked for the selection are very, very minuscule. So he's like, girl, just do it. Like, don't let me stop you. And she's like, you know what? Okay, fine. And then later in the morning, America's mom bribes her with money. So at this point, she's like, okay, I will sign up. When you sign up for the selection, they have to take your picture, which probably insinuates that it's not exactly a random draft. So America goes to the town square along with all the other girls. She didn't really try too hard, like makeup wardrobe wise, because like she doesn't really give a fuck. But she ran into Aspen's mom and his 2 younger sisters who were also eligible to enter the selection. And Aspen's mom lets it slip that Aspen's been acting pretty happy recently, and she thinks that he's going to propose to his mystery girl soon. America is flabbergasted. She wasn't expecting this whatsoever. She was like, oh my god, I am the mystery bitch. He's gonna propose to me soon, and that made her so happy. So when they took the picture, she had the biggest smile. She was glowing. She had that pre-engagement glow. So then later, America was all excited. She has this newfound money from her mother. She has this news that she's going to be proposed to soon, so she makes this big fancy feast for Aspen in the treehouse, and when he comes and sees the spread, he gets all pissy because he's like, I'm the man. I'm supposed to be providing for you, not the other way around. He's like, no, I actually don't want to marry you. You deserve better. That argument always grinds my gears. I understand where people are coming from when they're like, ugh, I don't deserve you. You should be with someone else. Maybe. Like, Maybe. Breaking up because someone genuinely doesn't think that they deserve the other person is stupid because it just makes both people miserable. But you really need to let the other person decide whether they deserve you because that's their own choice to make. Like, Aspen, you're really not girl bossing right now because, like, after 2 years of being together with her, you got her hopes up. Like, y'all talked about this. Y'all thought this through. You know the consequences of your actions. And if you want to do it, like, you're just gonna have to take that risk. Anyways, turns out Karma is not Aspen's boyfriend because America ended up getting selected. She is one of the 35 bitches who may become the future queen of, like, their country. So when she got picked, there was, like, this whole fuss. People were coming over to her house telling her all of the rules of the selection. Apparently, she is now property of the country. Having romantic relations with anyone other than the prince is a crime punishable by death, and all of the girls entering the selection need to be virgins, and do whatever the prince asks. However, America is incentivized to, you know, go through this thing because each week her family will be generously compensated. So she's like, all right, whatever. Then Aspen comes over and he's like, America, I'm sorry for what I said. And she's like, no, bitch, you're the one who forced me to sign up for the selection, and then now I got selected. And he was like, oh, your pick was so beautiful. And she was like, that was for you, bitch. That was for you. That was because I thought you were gonna propose to me. And you didn't. You actually, in fact, broke up with me, the complete fucking opposite. And she was like, what are you waiting for? And he was like, I was waiting for the draft. And she was like, oh, you know what, valid point. And then she slapped him across the face. She gave him all of the money that she'd been saving for the both of them, gave him all of his pennies, and so I kind of forgot to talk about the pennies. So if he wanted America to sing him a song because America was a really great singer, he would give her a penny because that's like all he could afford to give her, and she saved all these pennies and she gave them all back to him except for one because it got stuck at the bottom of the jar. Is it a metaphor? Who can say? So anyway, America went to leave for the selection. She took like minimal clothing and the jar with the single penny. And right as she was leaving, about to get in the car, or the plane, or wherever she was going to, she looked out into the crowd and guess who she saw? Aspen. And guess what he was doing? Putting his arm around the waist of another bitch. And so at this point, she's like, what the hell? Was I even the person Aspen's mother was talking about? Like, was he two-timing me this whole time? Because it had to be a forbidden love sort of thing. It was very secretive. They couldn't meet all that often. So who truly knows how Aspen was spending his time? But then, like, right before she was about to leave, she heard her name being called out. And can you guess who was calling her name? Yep, it was Aspen. But she didn't say anything to him. Oh no. She made eye contact with him and went. So America hopped on the plane with 3 girls. Marley was the nice one, Ashley was the quiet one, and Celeste was the sneaky bitch. They got to the castle, got all gussied up, and would meet Maxon in the morning. However, that night, my girl America, she had a full-on panic attack. She exited her room, ran through the castle, and headed towards the garden, but the guards stopped her because they were like, Miss, you're not supposed to be out here, we can't let you go outside unsupervised. And homegirl wasn't having this. Like, she was practically like fainting against the guard when someone said, let go of her. And you know who that person was? It was my boy, Prince Maxon. So she was allowed to go outside into the garden, and when she like took a couple deep breaths, she started calming down a little bit. And I'd like to read to you the passage in which Maxon and America have their first conversation because I think it'll really shed light on both of the characters here. Are you all right, my dear? Maxon asked me. I am not your dear. I looked up to glare at him. There would be no mistaking the disgust in my tone or eyes. What have I done to offend you? Did I not just give you the very thing you asked for? He was genuinely confused by my response. I suppose he expected us to adore him and thank our lucky stars for his existence. I stared him down without fear, though the effect was probably weakened by my tear-stained cheeks. Excuse me, dear, are you going to keep crying? He asked, sounding very put out by the thought. So as you can see, my boy Maxon, he is an oblivious sweetie. He's very unsocialized. You know, he was raised as an only child. He never really had any friends. He met kids similar to his age from other kingdoms, but besides that, pretty much nothing. So seeing him trying to navigate like women is just hilarious because homeboy has never really had a single friend. And now he has to navigate having 35 girlfriends in front of his parents and the entire country because this is a televised event, you see. Anyway, America keeps on going saying that this whole contest is ridiculous and that like this isn't how you fall in love, and he's like, wait, have you ever been in love? And she was like, yeah, I have. And he was like, oh, I see. He's probably like, damn, I'm quite behind, aren't I? And then they start talking about how like some girls are here for him and others for the crown. And he's like, which are you here for, bae? And she's like, oh, no, I'm here by mistake. My plan is to enjoy the food until you kick me out. And this sends him laughing, like full on knee slapper vibes. And so spoiler alert, but like at this point, my man's down bad. He has fallen for the very first girl he's interacted with. And so he's like, well, I hope you find something worth fighting for. And oh boy, does she do that. So then the next morning, Maxon meets with the 34 other girls. And when he gets to America, America's like, listen, dude, I am so sorry for, like, I don't even know who the girl was last night. I didn't mean to yell at you and all that. Like, she was freaking out, thinking that Maxon was gonna kick her out for the whole scenario. But he was like, no, I'd never kick you out, babe. But he's like, listen, America, I like need to know this. Do you think that you could ever develop any loving feelings towards me? And she says, no. And he was like, okay, do you want me to send you home then? And she's like, well, here's the thing. I have this person that I really don't want to see right now back at home. It's just too painful for me. Plus, like, I kind of need the money. So she's like, I'll tell you what, here's the deal. I can be your friend on the inside and you let me stay here. And he's like, you know what? Deal. I've never had a friend. So this is like a win-win scenario. After that 5-minute convo he had with each of the 35 girls, he already sends 8 of them home just based on their first impression. I always wonder how I would do in that sort of scenario, where if like someone was meeting me for 5 minutes, would they keep me or send me home? If I was one of the selected and I was possibly Prince Maxon's future bitch, would I be sent home in the first 5 minutes? Because I have this really traumatizing memory. I was playing a game of Episode, and in this game you were on like some sort of game show. I mean, it was kind of like The Bachelor, and in Episode you could choose the speech options to say, and I was choosing them away, like just, you know, acting like myself, and I was sent home immediately. Like, the game ended because my answers were too boring. It was like the first round of questions, the first night. I must have chosen all of the wrong responses in order to be sent home that quickly. But anyway, during breakfast, I think that very morning, Maxon called America out in front of everybody while she was stuffing her face with a strawberry tart. And he was like, girl, you enjoying that? And she was like, yeah, I am in fact enjoying this. If my sister had a bite of this, she would cry. And he's like, one bet? So they made a bet in front of everybody on whether or not her sister would cry when she tried a piece of this tart. And she was like, if I win, I get to wear pants. And then Maxon's like, okay, well, if I win, then I get to take you on a little walk around the garden. Turns out the sister did not cry, and so Maxon got his first date. You know, at first it was pleasant. They shared a few laughs, talked a little bit about each other's families or whatnot. Then he took her to an isolated part of the garden. No cameras, no guards, no nothing. And he's like, girl, why are you so tense? And she's like, I just, you know, I'm not sure what to expect out of this little walk. And he moves in closer and he's like, I'll tell you exactly what I want from you. And then she knees him in the balls, in the royal jewels. He was offended that America would think so low of him, so he immediately ends the date there, sends her back to her room, and America's like, well, shit, I ruined that then. I'm gonna be sent home in the morning. However, luckily, the next morning there was a rebel attack. So naturally, in a very tumultuous political situation, there are rebels who don't like the new government and the caste system and all of that. So there are 2 groups of rebels, the northerners and the southerners, and it doesn't really matter in this book, like, for you to know what the difference is between the 2, but they breached the castle grounds and the castle was under attack. And during this attack, mid-attack, Maxon and America decided to have a heart-to-heart about what happened in the garden, and America was like, listen, it's not that I think of you in that way, it's just that when the people came to prep us and, you know, make us sign all these documents, they told us that we couldn't refuse you no matter what you asked of us. And Maxon was straight up appalled, straight up flabbergasted. He was like, oh my god, did they tell all the girls this? Like, I'm so embarrassed. So then that was resolved. America wasn't sent home, and then Maxon and America decided to create this special little signal between the 2 of them, tugging on your ear when they want to talk to each other. And then he ends up using the signal later that day and goes to America's room to tell her that he's like, listen girl, I'm worried that I'm not going to find someone here that's gonna love me. And so then she shares her story about her first love with Aspen. And let me tell you, I'm a little bit guilty because obviously I am Team Maxon. Aspen just annoys me because he's such an annoying bitch. But Maxon is funny just because his responses to things are so cute. And when America is telling him her story about, you know, like telling him the tea, right? He is so invested. He reacts so perfectly. And let me show you, like, let me read you a passage. So then America goes, but when he saw all the money that I'd spent on him, it upset him. He's very proud. He wanted to spoil me, not the other way around. And I guess he saw then that he'd never be able to. So he broke up with me instead. And 1 week later, my name got called. I heard Maxon whisper something unintelligible. The last time I saw him was at my send-off. I choked. He was with another girl. What? Maxon shouted. Then Maxon says, listen, I will keep you here at this castle until the final 2. Like, you have my word. However long you want to stay, you can stay. And then, you know, weeks go by. Maxon starts going on dates with other girls other than America. On another one of Maxon and America's hangouts, he finds out that starvation and poverty exist. America tells him the story about how she knew a 9-year-old who got whipped as a punishment for stealing food. And that punishment probably hit a little too close to home, if you know what I mean. So Maxon decides after this conversation to set up free food stands for the lower castes using the money that he originally was giving to the 2s and 3s in the selection, which, you know, caused a little bit of an uproar. Mr. Robin Hood over here. So then there's another televised interview. At the last one, like, America seems to be Maxon's favorite, seems to be like a little bit of the star of the show, so everybody's trying to copy her. America, her signature color is blue, so then all the dresses were blue, but America busts out a red dress. And Celeste, the sneaky bitch, like, she was causing all this trouble that I haven't even mentioned. Like, she provoked a nice girl into slapping her. But anyway, she tried to physically take off America's dress so that she could wear it instead and be the one that's standing out. And she ended up ripping one of America's sleeves on the dress right before the interview, but like her friends fixed her up. It was no big deal. So then America gets put front and center for an interview, and word got out that someone yelled at Prince Maxon the first time they met because Prince Maxon spilled the deeds. And she was like, yeah, I was the bitch who yelled at him. And then she accidentally called him Maxon, like just Maxon, not the prince, not his majesty or whatever the fuck she's supposed to say, which was very scandalous because that's like a big no-no in terms of manners. And so when she's asked this final question about what she thinks about Maxon, she really couldn't like play it off as a joke. She needed to be sincere. So this is how she describes Maxon. Maxon Treve is the epitome of all things good. He's going to be a phenomenal king. He lets girls who are supposed to be wearing dresses wear jeans and doesn't get mad when someone who doesn't know him clearly mislabels him. I gave Gavril a keen look and he smiled. And behind him, Maxon looked intrigued. Whoever he marries will be a lucky girl, and whatever happens to me, I will be honored to be his subject. Maxon was like, say no more, girl. He runs to her room after the interview. And he's like, so you really think I'm good, huh? And she was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, your dog of a boyfriend will be lucky when he comes to his senses. He actually did in fact say the word dog. And then he kissed her pretty suddenly right after that. My boy was eager. Let me read you this passage. When I turned to ask just what he was looking at, I was surprised to see that he was close enough to kiss me. I was even more surprised when he did. I pulled away quickly, taking a step. Maxon stepped back as well. Sorry, he mumbled, blushing. What are you doing? I asked in a shocked whisper. Sorry. He was slightly turned away, obviously embarrassed. Why did you do that? I put my hand to my mouth. It's just with what you said earlier and then seeking me out yesterday, just the way you acted, I thought maybe your feelings had changed. And I like you. I thought you could tell. He turned to face me and, oh, was it terrible? You don't look happy at all. I tried to wipe whatever expression I had off my face. Maxon looked mortified. I'm so sorry. I've never kissed anyone before. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry, America. He breathed a heavy sigh and ran his hand through his hair a few times, leaning against the railing. I didn't expect it, but a warmth filled me. He'd wanted his first kiss to be with me. And then she kissed him for real. And then after that, Maxon's like, okay, have you changed your mind? Is it possible that you might get loving feelings towards me? And she's like, yeah, I do. But then after that, America's like, don't kiss me anymore because like, I want to be sure of my feelings. So I'm putting a kiss ban, a temporary kiss ban. But then Maxon goes and starts kissing other bitches and America's like, wait, what do you mean you're kissing other bitches? Like, I'm confused. I thought you liked me the most. America, you know, she annoys me a bit because I'm like, girl, you can't have it all. You know what I mean? Like, Maxon has very clearly expressed his feelings towards you. You can't monopolize him right now because you sort of voluntarily entered this game where you have to be okay that Maxon has relationships with other women simultaneously. But anyway, here's the kicker. She and Maxon go on another one of their dates. They round the corner and they see, you know who they see? She sees Aspen. The bitch got drafted. He became one of the guards in the castle. Maxon was like, oh, do you know him? Because they very clearly gasped when they saw each other. And she was like, yeah, he's from my hometown. And he's like, oh, great. I'll put him as the guard to your bedroom. So then there's this mandatory party for one of the girls' birthday, and America played the violin as her gift to the girl. And Maxon was all but seduced. And the party was going great when Celeste purposefully spilled her drink on the birthday gal's dress. And then later America tries to tell him like, hey, she did that on purpose, like you need to see through her. And then he got all high and mighty saying that he was the prince and it would behoove her to speak to him in a proper manner in his own house. He didn't actually say behoove, but I feel like he would have. So America stormed back to her room and guess who was there? Aspen, as per Maxon's directions. Then at night he came into her room like a little creep with no introduction either. He just like menacingly walked towards her bed and she was like, Aspen? And he was like, do you love him? And she was like, no. And then they kissed. So then this caused America to like have a full-on spiral. She had a crisis because, you know, she's in between two men now. And, you know, in her eyes still, Aspen is still a cold-hearted bitch who broke up with her and then had his arm around another girl's waist when she was, you know, leaving for the selection. So she pretends to be sick in bed, and then Aspen comes in to check on her, and she's like, okay, listen, I'm very confused. Like, why did you have your arm around this bitch? And he was like, oh, I just caught her because she tripped. And so then Aspen's like, listen, babe, I still love you. I've never stopped. Like, I'm gonna fight for you. And she's like, nice. So then there's this big rebel attack during the night. Things got pretty violent, and everybody had to be herded into the safe room in the basement. And after that, everybody was pretty shaken up. Some ladies chose to leave, and Maxon's like, listen, things are getting worse with the rebels. So like, I feel like I know what's in my heart, so I'm going to really narrow it down. The way that it works is that there are 35 girls are members of the selection, and the top 10 girls are members of the elite, and you know, his future wife is the one. However, Maxon has other plans. He's like, you know what? I don't even like enough of you to have the elite, so I'm just gonna narrow it down to 6 bitches, and you guys will be the elite. We've got Marley, who is the nice one, who was like America's BFF through the whole thing that I didn't really talk about, but you know, it is what it is. Chris was the birthday girl that Celeste spilled the drink on. Celeste, because he still likes her for some fucking reason. This girl named Natalie, this girl named Celeste, and America. And so keep in mind, like, the last time America and Maxon really talked was when Maxon was all high and mighty and they had that fight about Celeste. And so Maxon came to her room and she was like, oh my god, like, I thought you were gonna eliminate me. And he was like, bitch, if you told me you loved me with your whole heart, I would marry you right here and now. And then later that very night, Aspen came back into her fucking room, and America was like, listen, I can't keep doing this anymore, like kissing you like right after I see Maxon, like that's just not good. I'm choosing me, whatever the fuck that means. That she's just staying in this limbo where she's not really choosing either of them, and leading both of them on a little bit. But anyway, that was the selection. The next book is going to be The Elite and then The One. I bet you can guess, even if you've never read the series, where it is going, but you know what? The end destination is not what matters, it's the journey. Anyway, I hope you had a good time. Hope you're having a good day. I'll see you next time.